Elephants for Africa is a charity dedicated to the conservation of the African savanna elephant, and it started in the Okavango Delta in Botswana in 2007 after Dr. Kate Evans did her PhD research there. And she recognised the need to keep research within Botswana and not just have it leave the country when students like her came in and collected their data. So she set up Elephants for Africa with the aim of continuing research and education and keeping that information in Botswana. In 2012 we moved from the Delta to the Mitigation National Park, and we've been working there since the return of the Pateti River. So the river was dry for around 20 years, and then the water came back and reflowed in the river, and with that it brought a lot of ecological changes and changes in the wildlife population there. One of those things was an influx of male elephants to the area. So now we see predominantly male bulls, from anywhere up to the oldest bulls right the way down to juveniles and youngsters, all in mixed herds along the Pateti River. The reason that we're interested in male elephants in particular is because during adolescence they learn an awful lot from the older bulls, and we think this is predominantly what's happening in the Mitigation at the moment. We see big groups of elephants down at the river and foraging away from the river, and we're interested in understanding more about the social dynamics of these groups. So how do males come together, how do different ages mix together, and what sort of behaviours do they engage in when they are together? And then how is this kind of behaviour represented in later life when they grow up? The river is particularly important because it's the interface between the national park boundary on the eastern side and the community lands on the western side. So we think it's really important to understand how males come together there, why they come together in such huge groups down at the river.
With large groups of male elephants in the area, it is vital for Elephants for Africa to adhere to a strict documentation process that allows them to keep track of each elephant they come across.
So at Elephants for Africa, identifying the individual elephants is a really important part of our research. We've identified well over 1,000 individuals, and by the time I'm finished we should have maybe 1,250 odd individuals over a 3-year period. On a regular day we go out into the field for between, well, a minimum of 4 hours, and it's been up to 10 hours before, and so we drive 3 or 4 separate routes with slight variations, and we aim to drive the transects, come across a herd of elephants and start to take photos of all the individuals in a herd. We age all the individuals in a herd, we get a rough idea of group size and how confident we are that we've seen all the elephants in that herd, and we also get a physical condition score, and all of these can be put together to kind of get a group size and composition of the herd that we found. That creates each individual data point that we have. And so the photos we take, we aim to try and pick up the individual features of an elephant that make it unique, and so then we can go take it back and use our database to identify all of them. And so we look for notches in the elephant's ears, we look for broken tusks, and then sometimes even the wrinkles around the eye and the wrinkles along the front of the trunk, and they can all be used to piece together the kind of fingerprint of an individual, and that's what we use to then identify it. You put the features in for each one, and then that can then be searched using our search function that we have in our database.
While Elephants for Africa is dedicated to the research of male elephants, a strong presence in the surrounding communities is necessary for harmonious living between humans and elephants.
So with the returning of the river, there's been an influx of male elephants, as mentioned, and due to the national park fence maybe not being in the greatest condition, you've got these new male elephants walking through the communal lands, and when they do this they come into contact with farmers' fields such as this one and cause a fair amount of damage. So part of the research is to look at how much damage is being carried out by these bull elephants. One of the things we really wanted to do throughout the whole project was to get a better biological idea of what's going on. Primarily it's normally the older adult bulls that cause crop raiding. We also want to look at characteristics of farmers' fields and see if there's any characteristics that cause them to be prone to crop raiding. So we're looking at where the fields are in relation to the national parks. Are they at the river? Are they further away, and does that influence whether they're raided? But also what's being grown in the fields. So are there certain crop crops that elephants prefer to raid. The farmers here grow a whole variety of crops in their fields, from maize, millet to watermelons and sweet treat. So if we can find that there's certain crops that maybe the elephants target, and the farmers either grow them in a different area or maybe don't grow them at all, does that reduce the chances of being raided? And finally, we wanted to look at how the farmers feel about living alongside wildlife. So we ran some questionnaires last year looking at how farmers value elephants and what their tolerance is for elephants, and that was actually proved really positive. So the farmers in this region do value wildlife and elephants, but their tolerance is starting to decrease. All these findings that we get, we're hoping to be able to use them to target the conflict with mitigation strategies in the fields.
So there are three main mitigation strategies that have proved successful elsewhere in Africa to deter elephants. The first of these is a chili pepper fence. This involves using dried chilies and mixing it with car grease. You then soak rags in the car grease and chili mixture and hang them on a fence. At the same time as doing this, you can mix the dried chili with cow dung or elephant dung and burn this. Both the chili on the rags and the chili smoke act as a potent irritant to the elephant's eyes and trunk.
There was a workshop which was held here in the community hall by the DWNP, teaching farmers how to use chili pepper and the importance of chili pepper, how can farmers grow chili pepper. And that is when my mind was opened, and to say, oh, well, how about if I can give a try? Then last year, 2014, that was my first year to use chili pepper. Last year I was only raided once, but by the time I was raided, the crops in the field were too small, and there wasn't much damage. Then, but after that, I wasn't raided because I was burning this chili pepper every evening and night. This year, I had to buy an extra 30 gun poles so that I can put for the whole field.
Working together with nearby communities, Elephants for Africa is able to provide educational tools and other informational resources not only for farmers, but also school-aged children growing up alongside wildlife.
So as well as the research inside the National Park, we also have an active community programme working with communities that are on the boundary between the National Park. And part of our education programme is going into the local primary schools and working with the environment clubs there. So most schools out here have an environment club where children from the ages of around 7 to 11 can join, and they participate in lots of activities to teach them about their local environment, about conservation and ecological living. So we're becoming quite active in the environment clubs now, and one of the main things that we want to achieve with this is to get as many kids as possible into the National Park. So a lot of children that live in close proximity to the National Park have actually never been inside. And normally the only interactions that they have with wild animals are negative ones when they're coming into their communities, into their fields, raiding crops or killing livestock. So what would you like to see for Kumaka?
Teach the communities of this area how these animals behave, so that they shouldn't see these wild animals as their enemies. So we as the community, we must appreciate to be friendly with these wild animals.